Hey, hello there. Welcome to Talking with Tony. No technical difficulties today as we welcome back our lead football analyst, Danny Arp, and he is right there in contention when you go talk about the panel. I want to tell everybody the panel right now, John, UGA graduates, 89 and 85. Stormy's 87 and 87. Danny's just two games under 500, which means he's only three behind John. And Kevin is, Kevin's a little bit down at 81 and 93, but Kevin was doing well earlier this year. I've lost my way. I was five, six games ahead, up of 500. I'm now one under 500, just picking a few games. Danny, Merry Christmas to you. I hope that's all well, and Happy New Year. And it's nice to see you again.
Yeah, yeah. Merry Christmas to everyone else. I know we're counting it down. Tomorrow, big Christmas Eve, which is good for me, and get to spend Christmas Day just goofing off.
Yeah, with your job, I don't want to get into like specifics and a great background, by the way, there with Oga,
Right
but
on.
it's stressful for you all the time. But this is stress on steroids.
Oh yeah, it's definitely crazy. It's 30th year doing this thing, which is pretty impressive to have made it. So it seemed easy. I had I'm in good shape. I had a few hot spots up in Atlanta, like you said the other day. My car knows how to get to Forest Park, but so I spent about a week up there. And that was, once we got that under control, it's been smooth sailing. So,
I want to praise you for bringing something to my attention. I did not realize Ginger Woodruff was retiring, and you mentioned that on this show. Had some breaking news for me in your last appearance, and she and I went back and forth on Facebook Messenger and stuff. Congratulating her. Just find it so hard to believe that we're old enough to have, people that we went to school with retiring, but that's just kind of a fact of life, and
yeah.
she deserves it. And I put a little post about when with the success of the book Fall and Recover, naming English teachers, and I named her, but I didn't know like if everybody knew that she was retiring. So I just kind of said, "Congratulations on all of your professional success." And then she sent me back a message. She goes, "No, you can shout it from the rooftops. That this is it." So we're praising her one more time here on Talking with Tony. Any breaking news for anybody else that you want to bring up on
I
the
mean,
episode?
nobody that I know of. If things go the way I want, I mean, I may stick around longer, but I mean, I've been counting this one down as well. So July, that'll be my, 31st year, and I could get out of here if I wanted to. Probably won't, but
I visualize you doing it 2 or 3 more years.
yeah, maybe. I mean, we'll see how it is. The Ginger, you got to think. I mean, she did 30. What we go in 89. So what is it like 34? No, she graduated. So 32 years. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, and I didn't ask her specifics. It wasn't
Yeah,
my
I think it
business
was
really.
32 years
It wasn't
straight.
my business really, but I think if we're looking this just as an outsider looking on, this looks like a perfect time because her son's going to be playing some college baseball, and that'll afford her the opportunities to get to the games that she wants to, maybe all of them. And that's time you can't get back. You only get to go through that one time, and yeah. So I think it's wonderful, wonderful timing for her. We were together. I want to, God, this is like, man, this really tests my memory, but I want to say she was part of the Tiva Road Baptist church family when
Yeah.
I was in high school there, and we had a good little youth group. Bobby Lumpkin seems like Shannon Wright was there for at least part of that time. Brett Wallace certainly was there. In fact, they were all there before I was there because I moved during high school. But I do sometimes wonder where time goes. We've all, I think, we can be very proud of our accomplishments and what we've done. I think we've been productive. I'm really proud that people like you and her stayed in LaGrange and have made LaGrange even better. I don't know. Praise Lane and John for their store. But LaGrange has grown so much. I do miss the LaGrange that I, finished high school. I didn't live in LaGrange very long because then I went off to college and then I went off into the working world and that kept me out of LaGrange. But sometimes when I come back to LaGrange, Danny, I don't really recognize it and I hate that aspect of it. But I really salute those who've made it better. It's just the growth in all these apartment complexes and all. It's just to me is insane.
The apartment complexes agree with you on that. That sort of freaks me out. I don't know where. all these people are coming from. I mean, who's filling them up? I mean, the one down past our house that they just built with the Publix, right there on Vernon. And again, that's one of the things you miss about LaGrange. I mean, the little Vernon Street one of our time when we were in high school, totally different than what you got now. But I don't know where all these people are coming from, man. I mean, where were they living before? I mean,
We were a family that ate out very rarely. Most of our meals were at the house. But if you had an opportunity to go to N Clover or Cleves or was it Knickers or what was the name of
Knickers. Yeah,
it?
Knickers was one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, out there. I mean, they felt like, that was big time, for that night. And now there are all kind of establishments and more coming. And sure, it's been a long, long time. But yeah, I do sort of miss. And, I miss the driving around looking at Christmas lights. And the thing that I miss most about it, though, is not seeing those single candles or single bulbs. And I make a point of this to bring it up in Fall and Recover. And we're right here at the Christmas season and the New Year, but that was a way to signify to Mary and Joseph that they were welcome in their home. And there was no room for them at the inn. And I don't know if people even realized that when they were doing it, what the meaning was, or if they just liked everybody else doing it and thought it looked good. It was
Yeah.
also a way to light the path too on a dark night. They had a lot of challenges on this trip for multiple nights. So I miss I miss things, but I'm sure everybody misses certain traditions. And you've lost both of your parents, and I've lost my father and stuff. And you've at this time of the year, I find myself just yearning for more time with them and missing them even more.
Yeah. I mean, as time passes, you get into the older age. These times of years makes you reflect a little more. It's odd though, because to your point, we've lost the symbolism of Christmas. With the Christmas on the trees, which is the ornaments, what it started with. The single light candle in the window, like you said. If people do it, it's just for looks now. Not everybody, obviously. There's still plenty of people that don't, but everybody's about it's just capitalism, presence, and you hire all these people now to come and do these fancy lights down the
Yeah.
side of your house.
Yeah.
I mean, you turn it into a job. People have a job now to decorate your house each year.
We've lost Christmas cards, Danny. Like
Yeah,
people send Christmas pictures now of themselves, and I understand the argument, and I'm not criticizing them at all. People can do what they want to. They'll say, well, people want to see our kids or they want to see our grandkids
yeah,
pictures and all. But that was a way, Danny, to the Christmas card to share the message of Christ with others and have often scripture included. And that's completely gone away in favor of, and I mean, and some of it's just like people like to be seen. I mean, some of these pictures are for, professionally
oh yeah,
done. And it's like, yeah, people like to see their name in the paper did when there were newspapers. I don't think we have newspapers anymore, but I miss the Christmas cards as well.
yeah. I still get some, from certain people. I've got one guy that I work with forever. He's been here longer than me actually, but he always writes a great, sends a great card, sends a great poem. He writes a poem every year. And I look forward to that. My wife Janice, she's like, he got the card from Hobb. So we call him. Johnny Hobb was his last name. I was like, oh, let me see. So I read the poem, and I always text him, way to go, great job. But it's all about that. The Christmas spirit is about kindness. It's about, thoughtfulness of others, the thankfulness of what we all have this time of season. Thankful for each other, right? You may not see each other every day or you're not around each other, but you got the thankfulness that comes through and that kind of stuff. And you don't get it. I think I got 5 cards this year and I didn't send out any. So whatever.
I'm still trying to play catch up, and whenever one comes, I quickly write and send it to them, knowing now it's going to be a little bit late. But yeah. But in our defense, we've been back and forth from here to Memphis and
Yeah.
some other places. We've got some travel extended past Christmas into the new year next year. So we've been on the go. Hey, we can
In a few,
reminisce. Oh, go ahead. What are you gonna say?
just in a few years, I'm going to really turn back into my old Christmas spirit self. I mean, I've done better this year. I really have stayed positive. I hadn't been ill, and I think I've turned the corner maybe that I'm getting closer to 55 and the retirement date, if I wanted to. So I've had a lot better attitude this peak season. And then the other thing, I was going to mention is the stuff like getting gifts that meant something. When Janet got a box of, she bought a box of fruit, mixed fruit from the high school. She tries to support whatever they do. So she bought this box and brought it home. We were going to, who can we send it to? I was like, nobody. I'm eating all of it. It was, and I didn't mean it that way. Like I'm just saying, I remember when I was 18, 17, you got that, your stocking wasn't full of iPads and, little new smartphone or a Apple Watch. They put fruit.
Fruit
And to
and
me,
candy
that was
canes.
outrageous, man. I had like 3 oranges, 5 apples, grapefruit. I mean, to me, I would count down, exactly. I'm going to eat 2 of these tomorrow, and that last day when you ate that last piece of fruit, you sort of got a little depressed about time, about New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah.
So nobody, you put fruit in a kid in a teenager's stocking now and watch what they do.
Yeah, it's like raisins at Halloween. They'd be so
Yeah,
turned off. But you're right. That fruit would give you a few extra days
yeah,
after Christmas to be, reminded. Well done. Let's talk some football.
yeah.
I'd like to get through these first few games kind of quick so we can spend most of the time on the games, on the college football playoff games. December 27th, there's two that I've got for you to select. The Yellow Jackets first. They're 2.5 point favorites against Vanderbilt.
All right. Well, I've enjoyed watching both of these teams play this year, and I think both have had what they would consider successful, and Vandy for sure, very successful seasons. Um, and I think that they're both coming in and want to play a good game here. And again, with all due respect, I haven't done a lot of who's opted out and who's not, research on all these. But I do know that most of the rosters are playing for both of these teams. And Diallo's got him another. Is that how you say his name? Yeah.
Yeah, Diavo.
Diallo. Yeah, he's got another year of eligibility. So I'm sure he's fired up. But even with all that said, I think Georgia Tech's just going to be too powerful for him. So I'm taking Georgia Tech -2.5.
And as I look, the entire panel agrees with you. John,
Okay.
Stormy, Kevin all agree with the
Well,
Georgia Tech.
I knew Stormy would.
It's Kevin's 5-star. He says he wants to mess with Stormy a
Wow.
little bit. Yeah. Yeah. And
Wow.
Kevin, look, Kevin's done fine. He just had a couple of weeks where
Yeah.
where he fell back, but he's 7-9 with 5 stars, and that's as good as any
I was
of
about to
the
say it's
rest.
pretty dang good because it's been an odd season for 5 stars.
I lead 5 stars at 8-8. That's pathetic. I mean, that is pathetic. But hey, we digress. We move on.
Yeah.
Syracuse favored by 16 over Washington State. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Kyle McCord, the quarterback against Syracuse, and we know about Washington State's exits in the transfer portal. But you believe this game can be competitive?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if believe is the word I want to use. I'm going more just odds, and looking at history of the Holiday Bowl and sort of what's going on. I mean, Syracuse is looking great. They did everybody a favor, knocking Miami off. That really helped keep Bama out of it, if you ask me. So everybody owes them a debt of gratitude. But since 1999, there have been 7 spreads of 7 points or more in the Holiday Bowl. And it's a clean sweep for the underdog.
How about that, man?
So either we break tradition huge, which again, we are talking since 99. But either we break tradition huge or Washington State's going to do it. I'm taking Washington State in 16 points.
And a dynamite drop in there with that stat. Thank you very much on that. Brigham Young and Colorado. Dion's Colorado Buffs favored by 5.5.
All right. Well, it's definitely big on BYU all year, and we were up and down on Colorado. But Colorado had a fantastic season. Both teams did. But I just think that they're going out with a bang. Colorado, I'm going to take Colorado -5.5.
As I look, only John disagrees with you. John had Brigham Young plus
Oh,
five
boy.
and a half.
All right.
And I'm going to go with Brigham Young plus 5.5 as my first selection. Army -17.5 will be my second selection. That's the Independence Bowl where they're kind of Marshall pulled out of the game and for lack of players, and they've replaced them with Louisiana Tech. I'll credit Louisiana Tech for playing, and I hope it's a very competitive game. I just think that's a tall task for Louisiana Tech.
Yeah, I do too. And I do think that Army, that was a weird game they had against Navy. I didn't expect that to happen. But, we've seen enough spread options that if they're going to run it, once you get one going like Navy did, it's hard to stop. You get going every which way. And I don't think, obviously, Louisiana Tech does not have the personnel to do something like that. So I'm gonna take Army minus 17 and a half.
Yeah, good, solid choice. Only Stormy is opposite of all of us, including myself on that one with Louisiana Tech. December 30th, Iowa and Missouri. Missouri is favored by 3. I got a feeling you're going to go with the SEC here.
Yeah, I didn't. After looking what happened to Tennessee, I don't know if I want to do that, but I did. I'm sticking with it, and I'm going to take Missouri minus 3. I just think the passing game is going to be enough to propel them over Iowa. The defense just not going to hold. I don't think it's going to be that low scoring either. I think it'll be a fairly high scoring game, and Mizzou will come out on top.
Okay, Missouri's had a fine year. New Year's Eve, 3 games. Alabama starts it out for us, and there's more than 3 games on New Year's Eve, but these are the 3 that I chose.
Yeah, yeah.
Alabama favored by 11 over Michigan. Is that too many points? How do you see this?
I see it as too many points. I do. I really do. I don't think Michigan's full problem this year has been the defense. I mean, they've played well. Uh, I think they're going to have a little pride. Obviously, they've been kicked around. They scrounged their way out to a bowl game. I think they can keep it close enough to cover. I'm taking Michigan plus 11, and I'm hoping
Only
that Milroe has one of those games he likes to have sometimes, and not in a good way.
only Kevin is opposite of you. He's got Alabama plus 11. South Carolina and Illinois. South Carolina favored by 9.5. The Gamecocks there, another SEC representative. SEC Big Ten game right here.
Yeah, we seem to get a lot of that this year, but I think that's I don't know. I feel like that's just way too many points here for a bowl game. And, you know, I know South Carolina's, they're riding this wave of we should have been included and all this stuff. And maybe that's why some people are thinking they're going to put on a bigger show than they are. But I don't see the motivation to play that well. And I think Illinois has all the motivation in this to take down and take the Big Ten pride even
Mhm.
further. So I'm going to take them in the points, 9.5.
I think it'll be a very good football game. I'm not
I do
making a
too. I just
selection.
don't see how to get that out of hand. I really don't.
Looking at the sheets, the other 3 took South Carolina. So interesting. I mean, that's what you get. And look, we don't always know what we're going to get in these bowl games. Who's prepared? Who's taking it most
Yeah.
serious? But South Carolina, it did have an incredible year this year.
Yeah.
They made some strides, and they did have an argument to be in. There were a lot of teams that had an argument to be in, and I'm not one who's crazy about the 12 teams anyway. I liked it the way it had it with 4. I've said this ad nauseum here on the show, but I still want to think of some of these guys as student athletes, and clearly that's gotten away from us. They're not, and this is more of a burden, just having to play 2 or 3 extra games on their academics, but it just seems like, not that many people care as much about academics as they do name, image, and likeness these days. The big, the big 4 games, the quarterfinals. It's time to get to those now. There's one on New Year's Eve, Danny, and that's Penn State and Boise State. Penn State was forced to play this past weekend at home, and they did a stellar job against SMU. Big time, Abdul Carter and those guys defensively. They picked off 2 passes and they ran them back for touchdowns. They are big favorites for a team that just had to play. They're 11-point favorites against Boise State. You've made a 5-star selection in this game.
I have. Number one, for Penn State, I think they played an admirable game. Their defense was no surprise. I knew they would be good. I do think that the lights were a little too bright for Jennings. And, I mean, you don't see a game start with 2 pick sixes, right? And that changes your game playing big time. So I don't think, and my point is, I don't think Penn State was as dominant as the score showed, besides on defense, right? And I think Boise State is going to score some points. They're going to run the ball just like Oregon ran the ball on Penn State. And they got Ashton Genty. If he can run it, it's a done deal, man. Oregon, they ran 41 times. An Oregon team ran 41 times against Penn State. They knew they had a chance. And they averaged 4.5 a carry. I'd say it's going to be the same thing. So I'm taking Boise State plus 11.
And
I'm sorry.
you mentioned Genty there. If you had a Heisman vote, would you have voted for Hunter, or would you have voted Genty, or would you have voted for someone else?
I would have been between those two for sure. And again, I do think what Hunter had done was impressive. I mean, I don't know anybody that went both ways. The last both way player is Dion, I guess. He did a little bit, and then Bo Jackson. I mean,
Yeah, I think you'd have to throw Charles Woodson in there
yeah,
for
Woodson. Okay, that's true. All
for
those are
putting a wide
Heisman
receiver.
candidates. Several of them winners, right? I don't think
Hmm.
Dion won the Heisman, did he? Yeah, he won the Heisman.
Woodson, yeah, Woodson, because people went crazy about Peyton Manning not
Yeah,
winning
that's
it
right. They're
in
all saying that. But
97.
anyway, my point is, I would have.
Rod Woodson did not win it from Purdue, and he had played both ways also. But go ahead.
But I don't know. I mean, he played almost every snap. I mean, which is just crazy. So I see the argument there.
Yeah, no, he was.
Now,
And
just like you figured, all the nonsense with his girlfriend and everything after is just turned into a debacle.
yeah, no, I hear you. I definitely hear you. New Year's Day, there's three college football playoff games. You and I are different on this one. Texas is that situation where they played and they were impressive against Clemson. Certainly the SEC, I think their defense is sensational. I think it's right there with Georgia. Ohio State's got a good defense, but I think when I think about like elite defenses, I think, Texas and I think Georgia, first of all, and then maybe Ohio State just behind them. I do think Arizona State, there's something about this team, and I believe this game will be in Dallas, and that's going to be, big favor to Texas. But I believe these Arizona State players, I like the running game that they have. I like Dillingham. I liked him when he was Auburn's offensive coordinator. He wasn't given much of a chance because Gus had to be able to call plays. But he also had some time at Memphis. I'm pretty familiar with Kenny, and I just believe they can be competitive in this game. Not saying they're going to win, but when they're 13 and a half point underdogs. So Arizona State is my selection here, and you're opposite. You like the Longhorns.
Yeah, you sort of sold me on that though a little bit. I'll be honest with you. I don't know, Tony. I think that it's been a great year for Arizona State, but they get the time off and they wait. They're going to get the obviously the extra week prep. They probably focus majority of their prep on Texas, with that expected outcome. But I don't know. I just think Texas's defense is going to be
Oh, they're
cycling.
sensational. No,
And that's what
they're
worries me. I just don't know if they can do it. They've ended the last. I mean, I don't know why I'm doubting them. I mean, they killed Arizona in the last regular game, and then in the championship they killed Iowa State. So I mean, I could be wrong on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and ride it with Texas, just because I feel like there's some kind of fate in the air that we may have to play them three times. So
I mean, and credit to Texas. Look, their defense is physical, but that offense was without a bunch of weapons this past weekend against Clemson, and yet still put up, I believe, 38 points. I
that's
mean,
right.
against a good team. So they're capable. That offense is very capable as well, and they have two quarterbacks who can hurt you. So I totally understand. But I'm also thinking like, hey, this could be a game where it's like 34-14 late and Arizona State gets a touchdown. It doesn't look very important, but it actually gets them within the number of 13 and a half. I mean, we could have a
Yeah,
scenario like that too. So, um, all
definitely
right.
could
Well,
be a scenario like that. Yeah. But I
the
will
game
say
I'm
this, and
most,
I'll leave it at this. I think that Clemson scared them a little bit with that late score. Right, they got within one. Nobody saw that, and then they turned it back on, got back in the lead. I don't think Sark's going to make that mistake again. If he gets a 14, 21 point lead, he's not looking back this time.
they really responded when Clemson pulled within one. You're absolutely right. It took them no time at all. Like that. And Clemson should get credit too for falling so far behind and not,
Well,
mailing it in and making a game of it because
look,
this,
I'm glad they knocked Dabo out. I mean, he's a playoff guy. I mean, he does well in the playoffs, and I'm glad he's out of contention.
oh, he clearly can prepare a team
Yeah.
for a game, and he can do it on short notice as well. The game I'm most interested in is so interesting to me. Ohio State is, and I've got 1.5. At some places, some markets, they're even favored by two. But I've got Ohio State favored by 1.5 against Oregon in the Rose Bowl, and what is two Big Ten teams playing now in the Rose Bowl, and people know how I feel about that. And I don't, still think of Oregon like I'm like Herb Street. I'm still thinking of them as like Pac-12. But
Yeah.
what really draws my interest here is the fact that Oregon beat them earlier this year, and the odds makers have made Ohio State the favorite.
Look, I was watching the game Saturday, and when they got the shot down the tunnel, Ohio, I was very used. My pick I sent it into was Tennessee, and But when they showed that Ohio State team coming out of the tunnel, man, I don't know. They just their faces just looked like they were serious, man. And I think they just took all the bashing that they got, and Ryan Day getting a run. I mean, he got beat down, right? In the lead up to this. I mean, it was really bad, the comments they were making against him. And they took it apart. But
I'm usually not lock and key with Herb Street. I was completely alarmed in the final 5 or 6 minutes. You can go back and find it on YouTube. Boy, he took a shot at First Take, which is an ESPN programming, which is Stephen A. Smith, who had said, they need to fire him and hire Dion. It is Paul Feinbaum. He took those guys' tests because he says the guys at First Take have already been trying to replace him. They've had him fired. They've been talking about who should be his replacements. And he went on and on. And Fowler even said, like, pundits get it wrong. At our network, they got it wrong. I didn't watch First Take this morning. I don't usually watch that. I kind of wish I would because I would love to have heard that response. But I'm proud of Herb Street for doing this because even on my, and I had a weird day on Saturday with traveling and multiple weddings of interest to me. But on my Facebook feed from Friday to Sunday, there's all kind of college football experts that I weren't aware of college football experts about what teams should have been in, what teams should not have been in. I think too many people play too much into one game. We get very emotional about the most recent thing that we've seen when we need to sit back and look at the whole process. But I'm not happy to lose to Michigan 4 years in a row. There was no excuse to lose to Michigan this year other than Michigan's strength is their pass rush and Ohio State's weakness was their offensive line. But to Ryan Day's credit, that offensive line was ready to play Saturday night against a good defense in Tennessee. And if Ohio State can play like they played, they'll beat Oregon. I don't know if they can play like they played. Oregon is a great team, and Oregon's gotten better since the two teams met in Eugene earlier this year. Ohio State had not until the game against Tennessee. And like you said, there was a chip on the shoulder of those guys, especially those seniors. This was now their last game ever at the Shoe, not the Michigan game. And they had an opportunity to go out the way they wanted to go out. And they made a lot of people proud and they made themselves proud. I'm taking Ohio State here. And I know that you've got Oregon. Everybody else has got Ohio State, which to be honest with you, on the sort of worries me. And I'm not dismissing Oregon at all. I think Oregon's a great team. I think this is one of these two make up two of the top four teams in the playoff, but they're having to play each other right now, and only one of them is going to advance.
Look, I think that the 12-team playoff, I heard you mention it earlier. You don't think it should be 12 teams, go with 4. Well, if it went with 4, your team wouldn't be in this thing right now.
That is correct. That is correct.
Number 2, there have been so many teams over the history, right? You could go, and you definitely could with your stats and memory, that got left out, right? They're the 15, 16, whatever. They dropped, 3 spots. I mean, you could go back all the way to when they started that thing. But I will say this, that I think it should be maybe 8 teams. I think that you got to go and let the computers get involved with it somehow. And I think you do that, you're going to get a lot better representation. Also, the way they did the seeding was terrible. I mean, the fact that Ohio State just had to play the game they just had to play. And now they're right back in a rematch with a team that they lost 1 point by, right? And led into I think all the way through the third quarter of the game. So, I mean, that just doesn't seem right to me. And Penn State's walking. And again, I've got Boise on my pick, which is why I think it's going to surprise them. I mean, I don't think they're going to win, but I think they're going to keep it competitive. But, they're playing Boise State, right? You got, we got to go against Notre Dame. Texas, you're on Arizona State against Texas. I mean, so there's still some question as to what's going to happen. I don't think there was any question this last weekend. I mean, I picked Tennessee just for the fluky pick, but I didn't ever really think they were going to beat Ohio State at their home field. And I think the other thing it showed, that home field advantage in the playoffs was amazing, man. I mean, that part you couldn't say there was nothing wrong with that. That was a fantastic playoff Saturday. But the games just turned out to be a dud. And I think if we want 12 teams, we want teams like Ohio State to get a chance to get back in it, or any other team for that matter that maybe has one blip along the way. I think we got to keep it at 12. We just got to get rid of that. We got to get rid of that bye and just play it just like you would 1 through 12 one gets 12 and they'll beat the hell out of them. We all expect it.
I can't argue with you. I mean, everything you said is completely on. And that was one of the reasons why when I left Ohio State, Michigan last year in Ann Arbor, I was defeated because I knew that
That was
Ohio
it.
State they were undefeated but they had to win that game because if they don't win that game, they're not going to be in the Big Ten championship with a chance to win the Big Ten championship. I also knew Michigan had the best team in the country, which is hard to sell to people in the SEC where we're at because they always think the SEC's got the best team, and
Yeah.
generally they do. They got the best conference, but on last year, Michigan had the best team, and Ohio State was close to pulling that game out in Ann Arbor, and Michigan went on and won the national championship. Hey, we got less than 5 minutes, so I got to get to the Georgia Notre Dame game. This is a rematch of the 1981 Sugar Bowl that won the national championship for Georgia. I'm not trying to make any UGA fan upset, but Notre Dame was not going to win the national championship if they would have won. Notre Dame was ranked number 7. Georgia won. Georgia was the only undefeated team in the country that year. They were deserving to win the national championship. Their schedule was not difficult. Their schedule this year is difficult. They deserve to be right where they're at. They're the SEC champions. They deserve the number 2 seed. This is a tough, tough game for them. I'm skipping it. I'm going to pull for the SEC because I pull for the SEC in these situations. I'll pull for anybody but Alabama in these kind of situations. I would have a hard time pulling for Alabama in the situation, but they would claim the national championship anyway, whether or not they want it or not. But I want you to pick it. I'll tell you that the rest of the panel are all on Ohio State and they're all on Georgia, -1.5 in the Sugar Bowl against Notre Dame.
Well, this game, I normally would laugh knowing that we had to play Notre Dame in the years past, but their defense looks good to me. Now, it's not, I don't think it's as good as our defense. So the question is, can we come out with, hair on fire like we did against Texas that first game and stop it? Because this Riley Leonard reminds me of Haynes King. And I think we know how that turned out 8 overtimes later. I don't think we're going to come back on them, is my point. If we allow them to get up 14, it's going to be a problem with that defense they've got. I think obviously Kirby's way smarter than me. He's not going to let that happen. This ends it. We don't win this, it's over. And I think they're going to play that way. So I'm taking Georgia -1.5.
And this will be a home field for Georgia. Georgia has known that they were going to be in this game. They have knew the SEC champs going to get there. Notre Dame just has qualified. Notre Dame people don't travel. They do travel, but they don't travel to like the extent of SEC. In fact, you saw when Notre Dame hosted Georgia, they would sell their tickets, also to make some money, which the case in that Georgia game. So this will be a home type atmosphere. The Superdome will be very friendly to the UGA team.
Yeah, I think it'll be good 70%. I mean, I don't think Notre Dame's going to bow out, like they did, oddly selling out their, selling so many tickets to us when we played up there. But I don't know. I'm excited about it. I like it. I think it'll be a good game. We're gonna get some competitive games in these 4. That's for sure.
For sure. I'm going to run down your picks, Danny, and I'm going to run down John's picks, and then we're going to scroll everybody's picks at the end of the program.
Okay.
But Danny is 86 and 88, 6 and 10 with 5 stars. He's got Georgia Tech -2.5, Washington State +16, Colorado -5.5, Army -17.5, Missouri -3, Michigan +11, Illinois +9.5. His 5-star is Boise State +11. In the other 3 college football playoff games, he's got Texas -13.5, Oregon +1.5, and Georgia -1.5. John's our leader. He's 89 and 85. He's 7 and 9 with his 5 stars. He's got the Yellow Jackets -2.5, Syracuse -16, Brigham Young +5.5. He goes to the Independence Bowl for his 5-star, and he's got Army -17.5. He's got the SEC's Missouri -3, Michigan +11, South Carolina -9.5, Boise State -11, Texas -13.5, Ohio State -1.5, and Georgia -1.5. I want to run out Stormy and Kevin's just the college football playoff games. Stormy's 5 stars, Boise State -11. He's got Arizona State +13.5. He goes with Ohio State and Georgia there. And then Kevin also with Ohio State and Georgia. He's got Arizona State +13.5 and Boise State. So they agree on theirs. We'll scroll everybody's picks there at the bottom of the screen as we go off. Danny, Happy New Year. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today.
Hey, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to everybody.
I'll have you back before the national championship if that sounds good.
Sounds great.
All right, folks, for Jake Barton and Danny Arp, I'm Tony Jones. We'll see you next time right here on Talking with Tony.